Mr. Peres, when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, he said that de Klerk was a man he trusted implicitly and he could do business with. De Klerk said similar things about Mandela. Now, I get the impression that you are talking to a leader that neither the Israeli public nor the Israeli leadership trusts.
You know, every leader should be judged in two ways: on the record of his doings and on the echoes of his sayings. So we were really very dissatisfied with some of the announcements and declarations of Mr. Arafat. But let's face it, by and large, when it comes to real decisions, both parties are following the DOP as it was initiated.
Do you see the Hamas as a sufficient threat to be able to impede or halt or wreck the process?
No, I think they don't have a future. They don't have solutions to the people. They don't have answers to the questions. They are an escape from reason to holiness, which is a very dangerous escape.
So how do you explain the rise of political Islam on your periphery in most of the Arab countries? What is the basic reason?
Disappointment from the economic situation, from the netness of the governments, from the reference to the needs of the people. And I think it is more of a protest than of a religion. And for that reason, I do believe that we have to handle it economically and socially rather than religiously.
So you are in contact with several OIC countries, informal contacts are there. Do you get the impression that some of them will soon be having diplomatic relations with you?
Which countries are you referring to?
OIC, Organization of Islamic...
we have had since Oslo an opening of relations with 9 Muslim countries, which is quite impressive, and I hope we shall have more in the future.
Because Pakistan's Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto met your President Weizmann in South Africa, and whether there is any possibility in that relationship, whether they might establish relations now. How did that meeting go?
Well, I'm not so sure that this was a planned meeting, and then it was also denied in a way in the Pakistani press. So I'm not terribly optimistic about the Pakistani recognition or the establishment of relations between our two countries.
I deliberately asked you this question. It was, in fact, it was a trick question. Because when I asked the Pakistan, I know that the meeting took place.
Yes.
But why are the Pakistanis denying it? Why do you think? What is your analysis?
Well, you are their neighbors. You should know better.
Right. So, how good is the peace process? Do you think it is on steam? And when does the next phase on the question of empowerment on the West Bank, when does it begin?
Well, I have said it's irreversible and irregrettable. It's an established fact. I think it was a wise and strong decision. It is within the winds of modern history. And I think all of us will have to sail ahead. And I do believe not in the too far away future, we shall continue negotiations with the Palestinians and other parties.
But you have lived in a kind of uninstitutionalized apartheid, I mean, such separate development on two sides of the border in Gaza. I was in Gaza and in Jericho. And I find it so difficult to believe that you will actually be amicable neighbors.
You know, if you will look at the history of Europe, it was 1,000 years of hatred and bloodshed. And look what's happening now. We are condemned to live in peace, all of us, even without love. And I believe love will follow too. But there is no sense to go back to wars, because everything which is important in our life cannot be attained by wars, and whatever can be achieved by wars lost their importance.
One final observation. I was in Cairo before coming here, and I get the impression that since you had the peace accord with the Egyptians for 15 years now, and what I get there is an impression of a very cold kind of peace, really. There is, I mean, the positive side is absence of war, but there's no warmth in it. Would you share that observation?
Well, I prefer a cold peace upon a warm war. But it's warming up too. We are now for the first time building together in Alexandria a refinery with an investment of $1 billion. This is unprecedented. And I think as time goes on, so the relations will become closer and better.
I think today you celebrated, you had a very successful testing of your missile.
Yes.
What could you elaborate, because there's interest in India in this kind of thing, because we are going through with our missile project under and there is tremendous amount of pressure that we should abandon it in the name of non-proliferation. How do you?
Well, I cannot advise to India anything, but may I say that in our judgment this is the most advanced anti-missile missile. And when you take our situation, where we are surrounded with countries that still keep their declared state of belligerence and do possess missiles, we need something.
Is there anybody in your neighborhood who you think is about to go nuclear?
Well, I think the Iranians are trying to, and
What is the evidence?
When you watch their nuclear program, their attempt to buy nuclear installations, you can see clearly where they are heading up. I think Iraq, if once she will be relieved from the international control, will again try to return to it. This would be the two obvious cases.
What do you see as a denouement on North Korea? I mean, I know I'm taking you away from the Middle East, but this is the final question. Just as an astute observer of international affairs, what do you think will happen there? As a student of international affairs.
I think the North Koreans will have to submit to the demand of the international community. I think they are introducing too much dangers in the whole region. They may make the region an ugly place. And they think that one can be a freelancer in the provision of death. It's no longer the case.
So as you know, we have maintained our nuclear ambiguity, and we are under pressure to submit, to sort of abandon the nuclear option. And in our conversation with the Americans, we have said that we shall talk to all the parties who are nuclear, who are potentially nuclear, who have the capability. Is there any such dialogue between the Indians and the Israeli establishment?
I don't think so. I think that you have your own independent considerations about your region, and we have our independent consideration about our region. These are two situations apart, and everybody must look with its own eyes around and take its own decisions.
Thank you very much, sir.